What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do? Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Okay, it's mailbag time. At John Middlekauff is the Instagram. Fire in those DMs. Get your questions answered here on the pod. Question for the pod. Curious about the levels of alphas on NFL squads. When you were with the Eagles, was it obvious superstars that were the top dog alphas, or some dudes, not household names, that you were around that just carried the room and clear alphas? When I was with the Eagles, like some of their guys that became alphas were really young. Kelsey, uh, Fletcher Cox, Lane Johnson. Lane was drafted and then I was relieved of my duty, so I actually never was even around Lane. But like when I was there, our best players, I wouldn't say were the alpha leaders, like Deshaun Jackson, Asante Samuel. I mean, he's going at it with, and these were Pro Bowl level elite players. Asante wasn't better than Dion. I don't know if you saw that online. Asante was a good player. I mean, he was a playmaker. Couldn't really run, but just incredible instincts. I would say it was like guys like Brent Selleck, Trent Cole. They were just like they just had some shit to them. Even at the time, Jason Peters, who was in the prime of his career, I don't think was like what he ultimately became as he aged. And really, Mike Vick's first year starting kind of came out of nowhere, right? He was the backup going into the season. I actually think I saw it more once I left the NFL and started doing living in the Bay Area, going to Niners practice and Raiders practice. When I went to the Jim Harbaugh team's practice, like Justin Smith, aka the Cowboy, I mean, it was just he's just a dude. Like he is just an alpha. Like this Kyle Shanahan team, Fred Warner, Kittle, Trent, uh, it's like alphas. Debo was like that for a little while, and then it kind of got weird. But I would say Fred, Greenlaw, Trent, Kittle. When I was around the Raiders, Khalil Mack for sure, but Charles Woodson was at the end of his career. Like he was just him and Justin Smith. I felt like, and again, they were older when I was around them, just carried themselves a little differently. And maybe there's like, and I would say Trent Williams has this little as well, an aura around them. Sometimes with a younger guy, it's hard to be the alpha, like the heartbeat of the team when you're not one of the better players. Like you can be one of the tougher guys on the team and someone that no one would F with, but not be like the best player. So you're not necessarily like the leader of the team. To be the leader of the team or one of the alphas in the room, like you kind of got to be one of the better players. So I would say that like when you're around, I mean, Charles Woodson just had this aura around him. It was like, damn, it's Charles Woodson. And he was cool. I mean, we interviewed him one time and he was awesome. But uh some guys just aren't that vocal. It's like personalities, right? There are some human beings that are really social. There are some people that aren't that social, right? There are some people that never shut up. There are some people that don't talk a lot. It's no different in a football locker room. Like you can be a leader by example. It's like the hardest working guy going, but just not be a big talker. Like when you were around the Eagles back then, like it was hard to miss like LaShawn McCoy and Asante. Like they were pretty loud in a good way. Like everyone loved Shady. He was like the most likable guy on the team. I would say him and like Selleck. Uh, what are your thoughts about fantasy football and how it, quote, grows the game? Does it incentivize fans to watch the games? I think it's incredible. I mean, my two sports, football and golf, they use the term in golf a lot, grow the game. Like, Live did not grow the game. What grows the game is YouTube golf. Like in football, what's been incredible is fantasy football and gambling truly grows the game. Because the more and more people that participate in that, the more you're going to watch the sport. I got into the sport before I did either one of those. I've never been a big fantasy football guy, but it's not because I don't think it's I understand why other people think it's cool. I when I was young, especially in college, when I think a lot of people start playing now, I mean, probably playing like junior high and sixth grade in high school. But I was like, I don't want to play fantasy football. I want to play real football. And that was like a driving thing in my life. So I just never really got into it because I wanted to get into actual football. And by then, hell, when I worked in the NFL, I knew people that played in huge fantasy leagues, which I think it's frowned upon. They don't anymore. But yeah, I think it's a huge, huge part of football. And I would say the growth over the last 10 years. And I would say now gambling become much more accessible is that on steroids. So I would say those two things that drive interest of young people to like the sport that maybe didn't play in high school or growing up is, I mean, should be applauded. So I'm a big fan. From Australia, what was the biggest professional mistake you made working for the Eagles, and how do you overcome it? Congratulations on your recent marriage. What is the plan for the honeymoon? No plan for the honeymoon. Uh, I had a buddy in the NFL ask me, like, where are you going? I'm like, we just came home. We were gone for a little while, spent so much money on the wedding. I just needed to take a deep breath. He's like, that's a pro move. We are going to Costa Rica before football season in late August. So I don't know if that's technically a honeymoon, but we don't really we just need to take a deep breath. She's really busy right now, work stuff. Um, I would say my biggest professional mistake was when Andy got fired and Chip Kelly came in. I was pretty cocky slash confident. Like I was kind of like a made man in the organization. I was hired by Howie. I was good. I had an area. I was just kind of feeling myself. And we had a draft meeting, and I just kind of got into it with Chip about Matt Barkley. And I remember one of the couple guys in the draft room that night at the hotel was like, "Bro, you can't do that." And I don't regret doing that. I mean, my life has been dramatically better post that moment. But I would say, as a younger person, uh, I got humbled pretty fast, and then it was pretty clear a couple weeks later. I'm like, that was not a good idea. That I'm in trouble here. Now, I maybe they would have replaced me anyway. Who knows? I'm not that like arrogant to say that I was untouchable, but that was a moment where I was really feeling myself. And I think anytime when you're a young person and you gain a bunch of confidence, uh, it can go to your head. And I would say at that point in time, it was probably in my head. I was like, I'm best scout in here. I'm an untouchable guy. And then until I wasn't, and you realize who the boss in that room was, did not like me yapping back. But I think it's just a good lesson for younger people. It's like sometimes you just calm down a little bit, even though I technically was right. But that's beside the point. Do you think the narrative around Harbaugh and Herbert will change if they don't win a playoff game this year? Also, my buddy goes to Vanderbilt, and we are going to the Bama game. We were curious if you think Vanderbilt has any more upsets in them this year. Uh, I would say on the Vanderbilt front, it does feel like that's a once in a generation type upset, especially given that Kalen DeBoer is coming back, and that game was that game in Vanderbilt. So I would imagine that game's in Bama this year. If I'm wrong, regardless where it is, I do think that's a circle on the calendar game for Alabama. I would be stunned if they lose to Vanderbilt 2 years in a row, but should be fun. I would say I don't think there's a narrative around Harbaugh. I mean, Harbaugh has coached in the NFL 5 years, has made the playoffs in four of them. Just won a national championship 2 years ago with like 25 NFL players. I think Jim Harbaugh, universally agreed upon, high level, top end coach. Like, no one's arguing that. I actually think Herbert is the one that's polarizing. I don't see how Harbaugh's polarizing at this point. He's just a certified ass kicker. You make him your head coach, you're going to win games. Now, can he win the Super Bowl? Yeah, that's a narrative for a lot of coaches, right? Can this guy ever win the Super Bowl? We can start going around. Kyle Shanahan would be the leader in the clubhouse, but there are countless other guys that you're like, can this guy get it done? LaFleur, can Kevin O'Connell win a playoff game? I think there are way bigger narratives around other coaches than Jim Harbaugh at this point. But I do think Justin Herbert does have pressure, just given the way he's talked about in the top group. I mean, he is in the NFL. I just think considered a top five quarterback. And when you're a top five quarterback, you'd be the fifth. But the other four guys are Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, and Burrow. Like you kind of got to back it up uh, with just better play in the bigger moments. But you could say the same for Lamar. Though Lamar, I did think played a much better in the second half last year. I've heard you discuss the three pointer with Colin. Thoughts on limiting the amount of attempts a team can take in the first 46 minutes to a game to 20 or 25. After they reach the limit, any shot taken behind the arc would count as a two pointer. Last 2 minutes of the game, threes would not be restricted, would limit the number of threes taken, create strategy on when to take them. I don't like doing that type stuff, like arbitrarily picking things. Like you can only bunt in the last 3 innings, right? You can only throw past 40 yards once a half. You can only shoot so many threes. Like, yeah, the three's either part of the game or it's not. To me, if you're going to have an issue with the three, extend the line, but you can't limit the number of times I can take a shot. That doesn't exist anywhere else. In any you can't hit a home run here because you've already hit three. You can't. You got to kick field goals because you've already scored 4 touchdowns. I think we're just like kind of arbitrarily. And I've listen. You're not alone. I've heard other people bring that up. I think that's fucking stupid. I really do. I think it's insane. I don't think three pointers. I think sometimes when I hear basketball people discuss why less people are watching, I think they're too close to the sun. I think it's very, very hard for them to see the big picture. It's not just that every game looks the same and people are shooting threes. They lost people with the tanking and people not playing. And the season becoming baseball, none of the games mattering. And the games simply do not matter. And, for the first these last stretch of couple weeks, there are some big games. But for the most part, like football feels like that throughout the entire season. Basketball and baseball have lost us during the regular season because it does not feel like the games matter. I think it's all the three pointers. The Warriors were shooting a lot of three pointers a decade ago, and a lot more people were watching. To me, it's truly that people do not play games; they sit, and the tanking all kind of mixed into one. Now, I'd also argue the tanking thing, like no one's watching the Utah Jazz anyway, or the Pelicans. But I do think it's kind of intertwined. Just the games not mattering, and literally the teams don't care about the games. I'm a sports lawyer who graduated with my law degree from Marquette and go to my sports law and got my sports law certificate from a national institute. I have also worked in multiple NCAA athletic offices. I am currently listening to your podcast, Mailbag, where someone asked you about universities employing student athletes. You were spot on about Title IX and Title. I don't know the numerology with the V and the two ones, but let's just say 15. But additionally, the even bigger problem is once students become employees, their scholarship becomes taxable. The issue is most of the student athletes, especially non football and basketball, don't bring in enough under NIL to afford the taxes for their scholarship dollars. So becoming employees for the university is a non starter. Hope that helps. I'm always available for conversation. Well, I would say this. I would imagine the universities have zero desire to quote unquote employ the softball team, the soccer team, hell, the baseball team. Those people are not getting employed. It would just be the men's football. Well, I mean, there's only men's football, but football and men's basketball and potentially women's basketball. Now, I don't know about the rules. If you employ them, do you have to employ everyone else? Because if that's the case, then football's breaking off. But I hear you. There are a lot of complications, and it's not. It's it's a I would say hairy situation moving forward. So we'll see how it plays out. I don't know. I feel like it's gonna get worse before it gets better. The finals for March Mania are here, and the only thing for sure is it's the last time you can bet on college basketball this season. Get in on all the action, expected and unexpected, with DraftKings Sportsbook. With live betting, exclusive content, promos, and parlays, DraftKings is the ultimate college basketball destination for March. First time, here's something special just for you. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get 150 bonus bets instantly. Bet the unexpected with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get 150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. For the mailbag, big fan of the show. I've enjoyed some of your quote-unquote life lesson segments, so I'll continue the trend. I turned 24 in a couple weeks and will graduate with an MBA in May. I'm moving to Minneapolis in June for a job in finance. I was curious if you have any tips looking back on the 24-year-old version of yourself, mostly intangibly, when approaching career success. Also, an Iowa State student graduate who watched Purdy melt down in person several times. I wouldn't pay him even close to top 5 money. God, hater here. Purdy did a lot for your school. I would say that's a great question. Uh, you can't look at everything when you're young about immediate success and worrying about like the next day, the next week, the next month. Some of your moves when you know your industry doesn't isn't apples to apples to the world that I grew up in college football or the NFL or even radio, but you have to think big picture. So, if you go into the mindset of like, oh, I'm getting screwed here, it's hard because as a young person, they're gonna ask you to do some dumb stuff, and part of that is proving your worth. Now, there gets to a point like maybe they are taking advantage of you, but like as a young person, I would imagine if you're single, you don't have kids, you're not married, like spend extra time, and just be available and say yes more than you say no. And usually early on, that can lead to good things. So I would say also it's easy, and I was guilty of this, and most people are. When you're young and hungry and ambitious, you probably think there's not probably. You do think you know a lot more than you actually know. And the 50-year-old, the 60-year-old people in charge don't want all your takes all the time. So just be careful about being too aggressive and just ease into some things early. Don't go in there and think you're reinventing the wheel in whatever world you're working in. Especially, and then, once you're able to really soak into any opportunity you get, whether they take you to a big meeting, a big closing, even if you have nothing to do with any of it, really kind of soak in things like, God, that's take away the positive experiences, things that you learn from them, and then also see things that you don't like and things that you're like, I don't, that's not how I'm going to operate as I move up in the world. But I would say just be willing to say yes to a lot of things because in your mid 20s, like you got a lot of time on your hands and you don't have much going on in terms of like family requirements or marriage or those things. Assuming maybe you're already married with kids, but if you're not, you can really take advantage of. And some of it's going to be stupid. And some of it you look back like what a waste of my time. But some of it is not, and it's the type of stuff that can change your life. So I would just go in ambitious and willing to say yes and just grind because you'll look back, you're like, how did I do that? Well, now that's the time. In your 20s is the time to work crazy hours and really make hay. So like once you get to your 30s, like world becomes a little easier in theory, maybe not, but a lot of stuff's out of your control too. You got to like you just got to put all your chips in the middle of the table and just see what happens. There's no guarantee on anything. So that's part of what makes life fun. Longtime Niner fan. Frustrated every time I hear Kyle Shanahan get called a genius. If he were, he wouldn't be losing Super Bowls. I feel like Kyle is trying to live in dad's shadow. Who gets credit for giving him the title, quote unquote, genius? Albert Einstein was a genius. Jason. Yeah, I would say here's the thing. I don't know who, I think a lot of players, some of the stuff that Kyle gets held in high regard when it comes to offense and when it comes to play calling are the way other coaches and players on his own team talk about him. And also, like, he's had a lot of success as a head coach. I do think to be a sports genius as a coach, you need to create something from scratch. Like, he is running his father's offense. Now, he has found a way, his dad became famous in the mid to late 90s running this. So he's doing it almost 30 years later at a high level. So clearly he's adapted off of it. But I'm with you. Like, to be a true quote unquote genius, Bill Walsh, I think, gets a lot of credit for developing the West Coast offense, though there were concepts that I'm pretty sure that he had taken from other places, but like he mastered that in the late 70s, early 80s. So like, or some of these defensive coordinators that create the Tampa 2 or some of the defenses that Belichick and Saban created. Um, yeah, is he a quote unquote genius? Yeah, you could argue that's a little strong, but Kyle is a really, really good coach who had a bad year. Thought for the mailbag. The Titans should not draft Cam Ward at number one or any quarterback for at least the first three rounds in this year's draft. Ward isn't better than any of last year's first round quarterbacks, so I wouldn't reach for him at number one. They should go get Kirk Cousins and wait to draft their quarterback of the future. The Titans just finished their O line rebuild with additions of Dan Moore and Kevin Zeitler in free agency. So Cousins should be decently protected and can run the offense for a season or two. Don't overthink it. Draft Abdul Carter and win 8-9 games in a weak division. I think new GM Mike Borgonzi, who was the Kansas City Chiefs since '09, is too smart to draft a non-elite quarterback prospect. Your thoughts? They're drafting Cam Ward. Like, it's at this point in time, it would be one of the craziest pivots. Everyone in the NFL thinks they're drafting Cam Ward. The Titans believe they're drafting Cam Ward, and that's led by the coach and the GM. So, listen, there is dramatic risk taking this guy, right? But I would just say, from a skill set standpoint, the top three guys, Caleb, Drake May, and Jaden, uh, those three guys would definitely, I would say, get drafted above Cam Ward. I do think Cam Ward is physically more gifted than a 25 year, and I like Michael Penix a lot. And hell, I probably would have taken him in the top 10. But Cam Ward is a better NFL prospect than Michael Penix. I would say he's a better NFL prospect than Bo Nix and JJ McCarthy. Doesn't mean you can be better players, but just his skill set and physical characteristics, like, they are better. Now, would he have gone ahead? I don't know. But I, I don't think it's that crazy to take him number one overall. It's not a great draft. If you can create him into, I don't know, a top 12-ish quarterback, is it risky? 100%. But I would say Kirk Cousins has a ton of risk. Kirk Cousins might be shot, might be done. Like, it just could be over. He's 37 years old, an Achilles, can't move, arm strength looks like it's kind of diminishing. He's had an incredible career, made hundreds of millions of dollars. But you could, let's just say you do what you said, sign, you'd have to trade for him, trade for Kirk Cousins, draft Abdul Carter. What if Cousins is just awful? I mean, just terrible. Say this about the Falcons. At least they did have Michael Penix behind him. So it's like, hey, we'll just go with Michael Penix. What would the Titans do if, like, 5 games in, it's like, oh, this thing is a disaster? You'd be in trouble. Mailbag question. I just saw the NFL announce Global Markets Program for 25, where teams are partnering with certain countries to build the game and drive eyeballs on the sport moving forward. My question: how did they decide what countries would participate and which teams get to allocate resources where? Congrats on the wedding. Yeah, and support from your neighbor in Canada. I don't know. I mean, you're asking the wrong guy here on, like, who gets to be connected with what. I do wonder now that they have uh, Amazon, but even the Netflix Christmas time, if they use that to gather some data. And I wonder if just going to play a game in Dubai is just like, oh, we'll go to Dubai. They got a lot of money. Looking to expand, or did they see some data there? Same thing with Brazil. Same thing with Spain. Uh, Yeah, I've always said that they're doing that to try to expand their ability to stream. But what if they saw on streaming where they should lean in? And if you're Netflix and those people, you're working with the NFL, like, hey, you got people here. This is where you should play a game, which I would imagine is happening. So I don't pretend to have the information of why who goes where, but I don't think it's random that they're going back to back years in Brazil, or this upcoming year they're going to Spain, and then inevitably they're going to Dubai. Like I think they're seeing data. There are people there, and there is a demand. And maybe Netflix says we have a large percentage of people that watch in these areas. So you're like working hand in hand with the crew. Would be my educated guess. Could be wrong, but it's like there are only so many possibilities here. What is the life of an NFL scout, and why did you say you weren't going to get another NFL job after the Eagles? Uh, because when I got out in the summer of 2013, the only people I know that worked for the Eagles, and some of the people that I had worked with, Daniel Jeremiah had gone to television. Lewis Riddick was going to ESPN. Uh, Andy had hired John Dorsey, and John Dorsey ran personnel, and Andy wasn't going to. So the only person he took from the Eagles was Veach. Now they got several others since then, from the scouting perspective. But I just, I didn't really have that many people around the league I could call to try to get a job. I know way more people today than I did then. And then things just, yeah, just like, what am I going to do? So I just pivoted fast. Uh, I probably could have figured it out. Maybe not that season, but like the following season got back in. But by the fall, things started going well. I was like going on local television and radio. I was like, screw it, I'll just do this. And then I did it and it just never looked back. Um, I think when you say the term, most people assume college, and I've done both. I worked in the office, and when you work in the office, you're basically just working not quite coach's hours during the season, but it's just getting there 6:30, 7 a.m. If you want to get a workout, maybe 5:30, 6 in the morning, and you're there early in the week till 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, just watching guys, watching players, writing reports, or doing advance of an opponent. And you're also in charge, like that crew of like free agency. So you're running the free agent boards. You're kind of help running guys on the street. A player like Trey Lance right now, who's not on a team. Like you're running lists of guys like those practice squad guys. You're following pretty closely. Like you're just really working with the NFL guys. College guys are focused on the college guys, and I think the best scouts have done both because I think the best way to transition to college is to understand what's going on the pro game. And then when you work in college, I mean, you're just driving school to school, scouting, watching players, finding out information, typing in a lot of reports. You're just going school to school, typing a ton and driving a ton and eating a lot of snacks, driving around, trying so you don't, and drinking a lot of coffee. Hotel Marriott to Marriott, baby. Uh, So yeah, I mean, it depends on the team. I mean, some teams have guys that do pro and college. As you work up the ranks, you become like a number two or a number three. You dabble in both, and then those guys start working, helping the GM out, dealing with agents, running workouts. So it's kind of like you meet people that travel a lot for work. Like I don't even know if these guys exist anymore because of technology, but like the traveling salesman. It's kind of what a scout is. You got a couple states, 3 or 4 states, and you just go all the schools. Obviously the big ones, the small ones, the ones in between, and you're going to games on the weekend. It's just it's it's not a lifestyle. It kind of is your life. It's just one of those jobs where I mean, it's basically a 10, 11 month a year job because, in the summer, you watch guys getting ready for the fall. Then in the fall, you're grinding the guys that you're scouting. And then in the spring, your all star games, combine, pro days, into meetings. So really, you get May and June are kind of slow, uh, but you're still working. And then July, you kind of get a little rest. And then by the end, training camp starts. So obviously it varies a little team to team, but for the most part, uh, you're just you're watching a lot of football. I one thing I've learned, I love football. I mean, I've made my career off talking about it, off watching it, off just having it be a part of my life. I didn't love football enough. Like I'm going way farther doing this than I would have there. You have to be, I mean, addicted to the sport to be good at it. Like the addiction that all the GMs have. And I'm lucky enough to know some of them. The Howie Rosemans, the Jason Lights, the Veaches, the Spytechs, the Adam Peters, the John Lynches, Les Snead, John Schneider. I mean, these guys, if football was crack, they'd be crack addicts. They're addicted to football, and everything. In part of it, it becomes a very lucrative profession once you get to their level. But and honestly, they probably watch less football than they ever have during the week. But the business of football, it just becomes your life, and it's a grind. There's no doubt about it. It's Wall Street on grass, baby. Long hours, long days, and until you get to the top couple rings of the food chain in the scouting profession, you don't make that much money relative to how long you work relative to other businesses. Like if you worked in other multi-billion dollar industries and you were good and you were working as much, the amount of money you would make would be decent. I mean, you'd be a top couple percenter. But I mean, there are a lot of scouts out there grinding their ass off. You know, you could even if they're making 100 grand relative to working, you ain't working 40-hour work weeks. I mean, you're talking some weeks are 80, 90. You don't see your family, you're gone. Listen, it's you're not digging ditches and it's an awesome job in theory, but it is a lot of work and it's also a profession where no one knows how good you were, right? At least as a coach, you like if I'm a quarterback coach and everyone on my staff gets fired because we won 5 games, but my quarterback played well, people be like, "Oh, that guy's probably pretty good." And you get a lot, but as a scout, it's like, who knows? Is he good? Is he bad? No one really knows. I remember thinking that when I got out. It's like, how would anyone know how good or bad I am? No one would know. No one knows a lot. It's like when all these guys get hired, unless you're like a repeat GM, like you've already had the gig, which doesn't happen very often, like coaches. It's like, oh, for example, John Spytek just got hired. Like, just because he's been in my orbit for a long time, I know a lot about him. But if you're a Raider fan, you've seen the name, but it's like, it's like, is he good? Is he bad? Was he actually done? And then you hear stories like work closely with Brady. Obviously, he's good at his job, but you just never know. Some of these guys, Adam Peters, I saw for a long time, like he was always in the mix. It's like, well, what is he actually doing relative to the GM or the coach? And at least like as a coordinator, as an offensive or defensive coordinator, it's pretty clear. Like, this guy's like Brian Flores. I don't know if he's great at like managing the whole team, but there is no disputing Brian Flores is elite defensive coordinator. Elite. Vic Fangio, same thing. Now we know because we saw Vic, probably not a head coach. Flores, maybe he's learned from it, maybe not. I don't know. But like Flores, give him the defense. Shit. I mean, I can't imagine what Flores would look like if he had like elite players. He might have like his defense might be like the greatest scoring defense we've ever seen if he had like 3 or 4 Hall of Famers on it. But there's no disputing it because we watch him play, and then we see other coordinators like, oh, this guy sucks. This guy is not good at his job. Yet there are scouts that probably suck at their job, and there are probably ones that are really good, and no one has any clue. And the difference is in that profession, like the way guys keep jobs and the way guys lose jobs, in most dysfunctional organizations, like, well, do they like you or do they not? And you could argue that's true for a lot of professions. It's like, do the people like you or do they not? Because they're like, yeah, this guy doesn't produce that well. We all know these people in different industries. But it's like, he's well liked by the boss. Guy that owns a company fucking loves this guy. Guys, they could get rid of him yesterday. No one would notice. But he's a made man in this company. It's kind of similar.